are talking Devil, the British secret agent from 2023. Now, the British, we're always the bad guys in someone else's movies, aren't we? And it happens again with this one. So, you might want to be somewhat kind of familiar with the events of the last 100 years within India and Britain to really understand the context of this story. But effectively, it's kind of a movie which it takes place in over a historical period of time, but it's kind of like 300. It's a very like over exaggerated kind of fantasy action film, just based on a kind of historical moment, if that makes sense, with some kind of elements that are pulled from history. But the actual characters and the actual action within the film is 100% a superhero movie. So, what's the story? Well, we have a character called Devil, who is actually an Indian guy, but he's working for the British Empire. And he works for the Secret Service as a kind of James Bond-esque kind of style secret agent. And he's going on various missions, ultimately to try and, or at least it appears to be, trying to undermine the efforts of the kind of the Indian revolutionaries who are seeking to overthrow, or the British government effectively. Now, his loyalties are tested, you might say, when he goes on one particular mission to investigate a murder. Now, this seems a little strange because this is normally a matter for the police, but this murder leads on to far-reaching consequences involving political intrigue, double crosses, and a hell of a lot of action. Along the way, he meets someone wrapped up in all this, who he has a kind of a love connection with, and lots of kind of gun battles and fist fights. That's all I'm going to say on the plot. So, the plot is quite complex in this movie, in some ways, despite it being packaged as somewhat of a popcorn action hero movie. It's quite a complex plot, and let me just say that. But let's talk about what works. And let's just stick with that plot. Again, I'm not going to spoil anything for you here, but it is a surprisingly weaving plot with lots of kind of intrigue, lots of kind of like twists, surprises. Again, I don't want to even point to kind of things what will happen, but there's lots of things that you'll be somewhat unexpected, and character turns and various kind of like plot twists and stuff. So it's a very winding plot. So props to it for being fairly kind of complex. It's a little convoluted, we'll come on to that again, but it's quite a intriguing plot. I think obviously with the success of like movies like RRR, which have been very popular worldwide, I mean Indian cinema, Bollywood cinema, things like that, are becoming increasingly more popular, and the over the top nature of movies like this, I think, appeal to the masses, and it's very over the top, as I've said. It's a kind of a wire fu kind of style action movie, obviously that was popularised in Hong Kong, but it seems to now be more sort of widespread over the years. And like I said, it kind of feels like a superhero movie at some points. It's a strange mix because it has this kind of historical element to it, but obviously it's our Devil character is effectively a superhero who performs amazing kind of stunts. He's super hardcore in his kind of fights. He can take on 50 people and kind of defeat them in a brutal fashion without really sustaining any kind of damage. Massive feats of strength and agility and things like that. So the action is extraordinarily over the top with lots of kind of stunts and kind of like big sort of set pieces. So those of you who want large scale action and breathtaking kind of stunts and action sequences, there's a lot to see here. And we get a variety in regards to sort of gunfights, fist fights, chases, all sorts of stuff. It does have quite a neat kind of stylistic sort of feel to it. I mean, there's some really kind of quite stunning kind of shots and kind of sequences actually on a cinematography level. And it almost looks like a bit like a Zack Snyder film in some ways, when it has this kind of slow down and these kind of stylized sort of action sequences. The movie also caters to a lot of different kind of audiences, I think. It has these kind of very over-the-top action sequences, but we have a love story, there's some sort of comedic elements there, there is some dramatic elements and things like this. So the movie has its finger in kind of many sort of pies. So there is a lot to unpack for everyone, I think. And you know, it's a well put together movie on a technical level. There's a couple of kind of CGI issues maybe, but on a technical level, it's pretty well put together. The acting is a little over the top, but I think that's the kind of the stylistic choice that a film like this have. You know, a lot of the times when Devil, who is our lead character, he sort of stands and poses whilst he's doing these action sequences, and we just happen to have like wind sort of going through his hair and stuff like this. So it's a little cheesy, but again, we have to appreciate, obviously, this is not necessarily a movie what us in the West would be necessarily accustomed to. So it's, you know, it's just the thing that they do. But let's talk about what I think doesn't work in this movie. Number one, this movie is long. It's 2.5 hours long, and it has quite an intricate plot, like I said. But man, I was definitely feeling the length on this one. I don't think it could have been a punchier film without losing any of the intrigue here. But it is a long film, and I don't know if it really needed, because the movie lacks a little bit of the dramatic kind of sense, because it's this over the top nature of it. I don't know. It kind of feels a little bit more like a popcorn flick, and when, you know, a 2.5 hour popcorn flick is sometimes a hard meal to swallow. The acting, like I said, it's somewhat over the top. I think it's fine for a lot of the actors. I wish they had actually used British actors, or at least actors that could do a British accent in the roles of the like the British soldiers and things. Yeah, so some of the kind of the characters are a little bit on the cartoonish side. For me, I mean, I thought the character of Devil was he was a little bit too over the top. I mean, for me, I think you lack some of those dramatic stakes, because effectively this guy's like Superman, and he just breezes through every other kind of like bad guy character, and then no one ever really feels like a kind of threat. He just seems to be able to just like withstand any type of punishment, and no one ever seems to kind of like get close to kind of hang him. And again, so it kind of lacks that a little bit of kind of tension because of that, because you're watching a superhero film at the end of the day. I think the plot is intriguing and certainly complex, but at the same time it's a little convoluted, and then sometimes a little bit hard to follow, and we do get these massive exposition dumps from time to time to kind of catch you up with what's kind of going on. And again, maybe the plot could have been somewhat kind of streamlined. I think maybe, I mean, this is just how I would view it. It's a little bit kind of like dense at times, and because of the popcorn nature of the film, it's a strange kind of tonal balance. But yeah, it's a little convoluted at times, and sometimes a little hard to follow. A lot of the characters talk quite quickly, so when you're reading subtitles, it's kind of hard to kind of keep up. I have to be honest. And there are some there's some VFX which look on the cheaper side. There's a couple of instances where we see like CGI fire and things, and you know, it doesn't look the best, but we're not too worried about that really. The ending is just like batshit, to be honest. I mean, I thought the movie was kind of crazy up until the end, and then the last sequence, I mean, you won't be disappointed in regards to action. Like, you just want over the top action, but I mean, it was a little bit on the silly side, if you want my opinion. The tonal shifts were somewhat kind of misjudged at times, or at least if it might be. But overall, it's an entertaining movie. So it's an interesting plot because it's so in depth for such a kind of a bubblegum sort of movie in some ways. So it's a sort of a strange viewing experience, but it's kind of fun. And I did quite like our main character of Devil. He's very much plays like a kind of Sherlock Holmes sort of style character, but I liked his kind of like, he's not very good with women and things like that, which I found was quite an interesting little wrinkle in it. It was a fun film. I'll give it a 6 out of 10. I do think it's a pretty well put together film, but it's certainly, I don't think, going to be for everyone. And for me at least, there could have been things changed to make it a little bit more accessible. So it's 6 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.